Hi everyone, so we have some more complete nonsense from Frank Tufano. First off, we have his critique of John Venus's blood work. Now, I've had some personal problems with John Venus lately, but his blood work did come back pretty damn well, and I really don't know what Frank has to complain about it. And if we have enough time, we'll go through Frank's video about carnivore diet and constipation. I personally like being able to shit, and that's one of the reasons I stay away from the carnivore diet. But yeah, let's just go through this weird, blood work critique.
Eating a 100% plant-based diet. That means no animal products, no meat, dairy, eggs, cheese, or anything coming from animal sources.
Okay, so like John said, he's been, 100% vegan. 100% vegan, not eating any animal products. No cheese, no meat, no dairy. Pure plant-based. So let's take a look at his blood work.
Always make sure to go to the doctor and get my blood work done. And I've done that for the past 4 years, but I've never actually gone there and tested for things that don't show up in regular blood work. So I went ahead and asked for special tests. And things like hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and loads of different B12 markers, inflammation markers. So I hope this video is really informative and it can give more of a picture of at least how I'm doing on a plant-based diet. So at the end of the video, I'm going to leave a screenshot with everything so you can see absolutely everything. But I'm not going to go through them because that's going to take way too long and it's not going to be interesting. Also, I'd like to mention before starting this that I don't take any supplementation apart from B12 and yeah, I take omega-3 from algae oil as well a couple times a week, but I didn't test for DHA and EPA because they just didn't give me an option to do that and they didn't know how I would go about doing it. So, but either way, I'm supplementing with it, so I'm sure the levels are perfect there. And I do supplement with vitamin D3 if I don't see this.
Okay, yeah, so he's supplementing appropriately. That's the type of supplement regimen I recommend for most people. The only other thing I sometimes recommend supplementing is iodine because a lot of people don't get enough iodine regularly, but yeah, so his blood work should come back perfectly fine.
The sun in a long time, and since I'm in Norway now for a while and there is no sunshine basically, I am taking a little bit of vitamin D3, but usually I don't take any at all. So for this blood test, I don't
recommend not supplementing if you're getting sunlight. Sunlight really isn't a reliable way to get vitamin D3. Even if you're very, very pale and you spend a lot of time in the sun, it's still not a reliable way to get D3. Different weird nutritional factors can affect conversion of sunlight, like UV into D3. Your age is a factor. There's a lot of different things that can impact it, so you should just supplement with D3 year-round. But yeah, we'll see.
Hadn't taken any vitamin D because I just came from LA and Barcelona and there's a bunch of sunshine, and also I wanted to know if you're getting enough through sunshine alone without supplementation. And also I do sometimes supplement with creatine, but for the last 7 months I haven't supplemented with creatine at all, so just for the purpose of really
John Venus not natty confirmed. He supplements with creatine. That's a joke, by the way.
Seeing what my test results are, because last time I did it, my creatine levels were above average, so I wanted to see what it was when I was not supplementing at all with creatine. So I'm going to start with total cholesterol, which, cholesterol only is found in animals.
So ideally, your total cholesterol should be below 140, so we'll see.
Animal products. So the total cholesterol range is 2.9 to 6.1 millimoles per liter.
So that's the reference range.
And my score was 2.9, so at the very low.
Okay, 2.9 millimoles. Let's just quickly look up the conversion. Total cholesterol millimoles per liter, 2 milligrams per deciliter. And let's just use a converter so we don't have to rely on any math. So his was 2.9, he said. So that's 112 milligrams per deciliter. Perfectly within the healthy range. So yeah, nothing wrong there.
Range of what's recommended, which is great. So the HDL cholesterol's reference range was 0.
You're at the very low range of what's recommended, so that's great.
Okay, Frank, show me any kind of research directly linking low cholesterol with risk of mortality. You can't. I know people like Frank would link horseshit research on elderly people that, don't take into account disease actually causing low cholesterol levels, the reverse causation effect. I've gone on about that before, but literally every single study in younger people, and by younger I mean people under 50, you will see that low cholesterol greatly reduces risk of all-cause mortality, including cardiovascular disease mortality. So there's absolutely no health risk with having low cholesterol whatsoever. And as low cholesterol is actually defined, his cholesterol isn't low, it's within the reference range. So it's within the reference range. Having high cholesterol does not protect you from chronic disease, has literally no health benefit. So Frank is just talking out of his ass.
No, the video's on a faster speed, guys. But if he thinks that being in the low range of cholesterol is great, no.
Yeah, it is.
No.
Yeah, it is. You have the Framingham study, that was 5,000, around 5,000 in the original cohort. They found that under the age of 50, having lower cholesterol greatly reduced your risk of all-cause mortality, including cardiovascular disease mortality. The only thing they did find was that over the age of 50, declining cholesterol was associated with increases in cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. But if you actually read the paper, the researchers actually suggested that this is likely because of disease causing decreasing cholesterol levels. I've seen a few other studies where they looked at people who have had consistently low cholesterol levels that it didn't appear to increase risk of all-cause mortality in the elderly. And the MR-FIT, the MR-FIT screening, the MR-FIT screening study, that was over 300,000 individuals, and the age range was something like 30 to 65, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 340,000 participants, and within that age range, like about 30 to 65-ish. Again, low cholesterol was directly associated with reduced risk of cardiovascular disease mortality. But again, they did find the same reverse causation effect where low cholesterol was actually associated with an increase in all-cause mortality risk. But again, that was likely because of the elderly population and the reverse causation effect. And just like in the Framingham study, the researchers actually mentioned this is reverse causation. So again, you have no evidence. You're just talking out of your ass.
This is by the modern constituents, which already think that your cholesterol is supposed to be low. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, if you actually take a look at hunter-gatherer populations, they have cholesterol within that range, below 140. So I guess hunter-gatherers are really unhealthy, according to you, Frank, the people who you base your diet on. So the San, the Hadza, the Pygmies, all those people, they all have cholesterol that is generally below 140, total cholesterol below 140, so they're all in horrible health, right, Frank?
0.8 to 2.1, and I got 1.1, which again...
1.1, okay, so his total cholesterol was... Oh no, he's talking about HDL, I think.
Looks really good to me. And the LDL reference was 1.2 to 4.3 millimoles per liter, and I got a score of 1.5 millimoles.
Okay, 1.5. So I don't know if the conversion is the same. So I'm pretty sure the conversion is the same for total cholesterol, millimoles per liter. But anyway, so his LDL cholesterol, 58. The healthy range is 50 to 70. There was, it was, I don't know if I can even pull that up right now. I might be able to. What was it? American College of Cardiology, yeah. So, Journal of the American College of Cardiology, so, normal LDL cholesterol levels are associated with subclinical atherosclerosis in the absence of other risk factors. So if we look at this chart, only people within the 50 to 60 range had zero atherosclerosis, absolutely none. When in the 60 to 70 group, you did see very, very minor atherosclerosis, and I also have to point out The entire group here had subclinical atherosclerosis. So subclinical just means it's not to a point where it's actually causing like a real detriment to your health. You're not getting angina. You're not at like heart attack risk. But the only group here who had zero atherosclerosis was people in this range, and John happens to be in that range. So if he can keep his LDL that low, he should have extraordinarily low risk of heart disease. So I'd say that's as good as you can get as far as like a lipid score. So again, what criticism could Frank possibly have?
Millimoles per liter, which is great as well.
He's okay. So what he's saying is, in the reference range, his cholesterol is great because it's low, but cholesterol is composing every cell in the body. So
Yeah, that's cool. And his body makes enough. Again, there's a case report. I even made a video about this. I don't know if I might have deleted it because it might not have fit within YouTube's guidelines. Let's just see. What's that guy's name? Oh yeah, Nico Cotto. I remember I referenced it in here. Okay, I probably deleted it. Well, anyway, there's a case report of a retired U.S. Navy chaplain who had an LDL cholesterol score of 4 to 5 milligrams per deciliter, so 10 times lower than John Venus. This is only a case report, but he was in perfect health. The doctor said there's absolutely nothing wrong with him, so you can have extraordinarily low serum cholesterol levels. Does not impact your health whatsoever. So this is of no concern at all. Again, Frank, he's coming up with this bullcrap. All your cells are made up of cholesterol. Well, okay. Your serum levels of cholesterol seem to have no effect on anything, like, other than your heart disease risk. So if you have low cholesterol, that's a good thing.
if the reference range is 1.2 to 4.2 or whatever the reference range is, wouldn't it be better for you to be dead in the middle of the reference range than lower?
Why would he, like, what is he basing this off of? So, like, again, he's just talking out of his ass. Why is it better to be in the middle of the reference range?
This is not an art. I mean, this is an art. Like, I mean, obviously, this is under the constituent that LDL cholesterol is what causes heart disease, which isn't necessarily true.
It is. I don't know, like, again, there's this very, and I'm sure Frank saw this video of mine. So LDL cholesterol has a direct linear relationship with severity of atherosclerosis. The Framingham heart study, again, they found a direct linear relationship between total cholesterol and risk of heart disease. The MR-FIT screening trial, that again showed a direct linear relationship between cholesterol and heart disease. And there are a few other massive meta-analyses that looked at genetic data where people with genetically low cholesterol levels had much lower risk of heart disease. So, like, again, this, like, the nail has been put in the coffin. There is a direct linear relationship between your serum cholesterol and your risk of heart disease and atherosclerosis. There's no arguing against this. So, again, he's just talking out of his ass. What data are you referring to that suggests your LDL cholesterol should be in the middle of the reference range? And by the way, Frank's cholesterol isn't in the middle of the friggin' reference range. So what is he even talking about? He made a video on his channel talking about his blood test results. His cholesterol was way outside of the friggin' reference range. So are you at risk for heart disease now, Frank, because your cholesterol is outside of the middle of the reference range?
But this is completely ridiculous.
Yeah, you're telling me.
And then triglycerides, which basically means...
Guys, the video is sped up. The video is sped up. Like, it's 1.25.
I love how his audience is so dumb. He has to explain. The video's sped up, guys. He doesn't actually talk this fast.
5 speed.
The fat that is running through your veins in your blood. So that was a reference of 0.45 to 2.6 millimoles per liter, and my score was 0.71.
0.71. So I think for triglycerides, oh, they have it for triglycerides, 0.71. So let's see, 0.71. Okay, that's absolutely great. His triglyceride score, fucking awesome. I think typically with the reference range, they recommend being under 150 milligrams per deciliter for triglycerides. I recommend shooting for below 100. John is at 62. That's excellent. Nothing like if he can keep his lipid scores at this level, he has virtually zero risk for heart disease.
Which is a little bit higher than I was expecting, but still.
Really? Oh, okay, so I don't know why he was expecting his levels to be like lower. That's like excellent. There's nothing to complain about there, but I'd say as long as it's below 100, perfectly fine.
Within the healthy range. So next one I'm going to talk to you guys about is zinc, because a lot of people think that it's hard to get enough zinc through a plant-based diet, and magnesium as well.
So it can be hard to get zinc through a plant-based diet if you're not eating enough beans, grains, legumes, and also absorption of zinc on a plant-based diet is a little more difficult. You can make up for that by either eating more zinc, which again is pretty easy as long as you properly, as long as you set up your diet properly. Or you can do a few tricks, like adding onions and garlic to your lentils that actually massively increases zinc absorption by like 50%. So, yeah, zinc deficiencies are pretty common in a vegan diet, but again, it's very easy to, get enough zinc.
Is one of the things that a lot of people think it's hard to get. So I'm going to talk about those two. So the zinc reference range is 9 to 17 micromoles per liter, and my result was 14.2, which is great. And the magnesium reference is...
Oh, look at that. Look at that little... Oh, he's not deficient in anything. Oh...
0.71 to 0.94 millimoles per liter, and my result was 0.95.
So wait, what was that? I kind of missed that.
Reference range is 9 to 17 micromoles per liter, and my result was 14.2, which is great. And the magnesium reference is 0.71 to 0.94 millimoles per liter, and my result was 0.95, so slightly above, the upper limit.
Yeah, again, easy. When I write programs for my clients, if you just my online coaching clients, if you look up just different nutrients like zinc, it's extraordinarily high, and it's just because I recommend eating a lot of beans and legumes and grains. So your things like zinc, a lot of your minerals, they're going to be extremely high if you write a proper diet plan. So risk of deficiencies like these becomes extraordinarily unlikely, unless you have weird gut problems, or if you're female who menstruates a lot, like really heavy periods, then you might have issues with getting enough iron. Maybe there's some extraordinary circumstances where you're like a porn star and you just ejaculate 20 times a day. Then okay, maybe you need a lot of zinc and you should, take a supplement or something. But again, if a diet is appropriately planned, like John's is, you shouldn't have a problem.
So one of the benefits about eating a plant-based diet from whole food sources is that it helps reduce inflammation, and inflammation is a cause of...
He just said that people say that a vegan diet is deficient in magnesium and zinc.
Yeah, I don't know about magnesium, but zinc deficiencies are quite common in vegan diets. One of, or if not the most recent nutrition intake and nutrition status studies on vegans, vegetarians, and meat eaters found that 70% of vegans were zinc deficient, were in the range of deficiency. So yeah, that's pretty common. Iodine is another big one, but meat eaters and vegans have about the same rate of iodine deficiency. So again, that's not a nutrient of concern for vegans in particular. That's just a nutrient of concern for everyone. As far as D3 goes, I think, again, it was pretty much even. because, again, most people get their D3 through fortified foods and supplementation. And iron, actually fewer vegans in that study out of Switzerland were iron deficient. So, yeah, zinc is the biggest one.
Like he said that when people talk about a vegan diet being deficient, he said that people talk about magnesium and zinc. People talk about like B12, DHA.
Yeah, vegans aren't at higher risk of B12 deficiency. 20 or 30 years ago, that was, or even 40 years ago, like if you look back at the Adventist health studies, you know, those started back in the 70s. Back then, you couldn't really find B12 supplements just on the shelf at like a supplement store. You actually had to go to the doctor and get it prescribed to you. So this actually resulted in a lot more B12 deficiencies in vegans and vegetarians. And they're just, you know, Tofurkey wasn't around. There weren't like companies that were making a lot of vegan products with fortified foods. So, yeah, B12 definitely was a nutrient of concern back then, but in modern times, you know, almost everyone's taking a friggin' vitamin to begin with. A lot of vegans are supplementing with B12, or they're eating fortified foods. You know, they're eating soy milk or vegan burgers or something that have B12. So, if you actually look at the study I'm talking about out of Switzerland, I've made a few videos referencing it. If you take a look at my roaming millennial video, I reference that study. Yeah, vegans are not at higher risk of B12 deficiency compared to meat eaters. So for Frank to mention this, he's, again, just talking out of his ass, doesn't know what he's talking about.
DHA, vitamins. Some people might mention phytic acid and magnesium and zinc on a plant-based diet, but most people actually
Phytic acid? What is he talking about?
think that a plant-based diet is the only source of things like magnesium and zinc. People aren't really familiar with the nutrient profile of animal food, so for him to say that doesn't make any sense.
What? I don't know what Frank is doing. I think he might be playing with his little acorn or something and just not paying attention. But so John Venus, he's not deficient in any of these key nutrients. His lipid panel came back absolutely excellent. He's pretty much at zero risk for heart disease based on his lipid panel. So I don't even know what Frank has to complain about.
A lot of chronic disease. Obviously optimal to keep your inflammation down, so I went ahead and tested for different inflammation markers. So the first one is erythrocyte sedimentation rate, which again is an inflammation marker. It can be used to determine conditions such as arthritis or other immune diseases. So the reference is 0 to 20 millimeters, and my result was 2 millimeters. So very low on the spectrum, which is great. We don't want any inflammation in our body. And then C-reactive protein is also one of the markers that people test for to find out if you have inflammation going on in your body. And the reference range there is 0 to 4 milliliters per liter, and my result was under 1. So
okay, so yeah, I don't know too much about those biomarkers, but from what I'm seeing, he's within the reference range and he's very low on the reference range, so nothing to complain about there.
it was probably so low that they didn't, even register it. So that's amazing. So calcium is obviously one of the big hot topics when it comes to a plant-based diet, because a lot of people think that you need dairy.
So calcium is a weird one. I don't like, some of the recent research has shown that vegans are at a higher risk of bone fractures due to low calcium intake. Apparently, when you control for calcium intake, vegans aren't actually at higher risk of fractures so long as they're eating 550 milligrams of calcium per day or more. I don't even know why that's difficult to hit that target for calcium for a lot of vegans. I don't know what most vegans are eating, but like I'll just show you on Chronometer real quick. I'm just gonna delete these items. So let's see, soy milk, so unsweetened, ready to drink, 1 cup. So we're already at, where's the calcium? So we're already at 300 milligrams of calcium for the day. So that's after only 1 glass of soy milk. Then let's just do some tofu, extra firm. One block, 342 grams, and now we're at 1,582 milligrams of calcium. Again, the target, like the minimum target for calcium, is 550 milligrams. Eating 1 glass of soy milk and a block of tofu, 1,582 milligrams. So basically, we got double the amount of calcium we need just from eating a bit of soy milk, block of tofu. Very, very easy to get enough calcium. So, I don't know what most vegans are doing, but it's painfully easy to get enough calcium on a vegan diet.
And you need to drink milk to get enough calcium. So I went ahead and did a different test for calcium that is supposed to give a better picture of whether or not you're getting enough calcium, which is the ionized calcium marker instead of just the total or free calcium. And the reference range for the ionized calcium is 1.18 to 1.32 millimoles per liter. And my result was 1.23, which seems really good to me. So this doesn't really give...
Okay, so he's within the reference range. Yeah, nothing like, and look at the sour face on Frank Tufano. Oh man, all his blood work's in the reference range. Yeah, you're expecting something else, weren't you? So let's see. You know what's also really freaking hilarious? Apparently, Frank Tufano is going to start doing his own online coaching, sort of like what I'm doing right now. So this was announced in one of his latest live streams. Carnivore Q&A fitness routine announcement. So, I don't know when he's actually going to start accepting clients, but on Twitter, I actually tweeted this out. Said, I heard you're now taking on clients for online coaching and providing hypertrophy programs. That's Frank's words himself. He says he wants to provide hypertrophy programs. How much do they cost? I was thinking paying for your services to show everyone you have no idea of what you're talking about. There's a reason you're so skinny after all. I don't know if he's replied yet. It doesn't look like he's replied yet. So if his online coaching is cheap enough, yeah, I'll pay for it and then show everyone he doesn't know how to write a program. This is how, this kid is just insanely skinny. Who would... there's no hypertrophy going on here. This is like a kid who gets... that's jerking off muscles. So, why would anyone... And I also love how the caricature of him that he had done, he doesn't have that much muscle in real life. And I've challenged him to an MMA match, I think, already. And he hasn't accepted. So, I don't know why this vegan is all skinny when... literally every other vegan fitness YouTuber on YouTube, literally everyone, is bigger than him. I don't know of any other vegan fitness YouTuber who's smaller than Frank. There's none. So, really weird how he's going after people like John Venus, who are literally 4 times his size, great blood work, everything's within the reference range. So... This is really strange.
Give a full picture of how your bones are doing in terms of bone calcium, which is the 1.8 to 1.32 millimoles per liter. And my result was 1.23, which seems really good to me. So this doesn't really give a full picture of how your bones are doing in terms of bone health. So the best way to do that...
you'd need to get a DEXA scan done to take a look at your actual bone mineral density, but, that's at least a sign you're getting in enough calcium, so...
is to do a DEXA scan and find out what your bone density is. And I did that last year, and it was really, really high because...
Okay, yeah. So, yeah. I wouldn't expect him to have a low bone mineral density because, for one, he's probably getting in enough calcium because he eats things like soy milk, tofu very frequently, so he's getting in plenty of calcium each day. And he does heavy weight training. Heavy weight training is really good for promoting bone mineral density, so I wouldn't expect him to have low bone mineral density.
Resistance training and obviously consuming enough calcium. Alright, so creatinine or creatine, the reference is 60 to 100.
Okay, so creatinine, it's a breakdown product of creatine that can be a sign of kidney damage because if your kidneys are damaged, then you're going to have higher creatinine levels. However, weightlifters people with a lot of muscle, they have higher creatinine levels. So
5 micromoles per liter, and the result was
So you take steroids and do resistance training, and then
okay. So the only reason John has big muscles is because he's taking steroids. Okay, so you're playing that card. Yeah, are these steroids? Huh? Are these steroids? You're just a skinny little fucking weakling.
you're gonna say that the reason you have high bone density is because you take calcium.
Oh my god, the reason he has high bone mineral density is because he fucking takes enough calcium and he lifts heavy weights. What an idiot.
And you know the thing that if he doesn't understand.
By the way, I don't think steroids actually have the effect of increasing bone mineral density. What the hormone that actually encourages bone mineral density is estrogen. So taking testosterone, I don't think that would actually have an impact on increasing bone mineral density. Now, if you're taking testosterone and doing really heavy weight training, and you're putting a lot of load on your skeleton, that would have an effect on increasing bone mineral density, but I don't think the, like, exogenous hormones, anabolic androgenic steroids, I don't think they in themselves increase bone mineral density. So don't, like, totally quote me on that. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that things like testosterone injections, I'm pretty sure that alone wouldn't actually increase bone mineral density. And I mean, like what the hell is Frank talking about? Is he saying every single vegan would have low bone mineral density if they didn't take steroids? Like, this is just stupid.
So he clearly doesn't understand calcium metabolism, because calcium metabolism is regulated by vitamin D3 and K2.
He takes vitamin D3, and he very likely has enough D3 because he supplements, at least, sporadically throughout the year. And what was it that he said? It's what I can't remember what Frank said.
obviously consuming enough calcium. All right, so creatine.
No, the thing that if he doesn't understand so he clearly doesn't understand calcium metabolism, because calcium
K2. Okay, so vitamin K2. Okay, your own body produces vitamin K2. So I don't know what he's talking about. K1 also plays a role in bone mineral density as well, so I don't know why he's specifically referencing K2. And he'd get enough K1 from eating green veggies. So I have no idea what he's talking about here.
metabolism is regulated by vitamin D3 and K2.
No, not K2, just K1.
So if he had half a clue about calcium metabolism, he wouldn't be saying that calcium makes healthy bones.
Well, no, he would be. If you're not eating enough calcium, then yes, you are likely going to lack bone mineral density. And according to the most recent research, the reason vegans often have like an increased risk of fractures is because they're not getting enough calcium. Once you actually control for calcium intake in vegans don't have an increased risk of fracture risk once your calcium intake is at or above 550 milligrams per day. So
Calcium doesn't make healthy bones. Vitamin D3.
no, calcium itself doesn't, but you need enough calcium, and you also D3 is important. It helps bind calcium to bone. If you have some hormonal issues, that can also be a problem too, especially for postmenopausal women. If you're not producing enough estrogen, that will actually make you lose bone mineral density. And also heavy weight training. Heavy weight training is absolutely amazing for increasing your bone mineral density. There was a trial that was recently done a few years ago on women with osteoporosis. Having them go on a weight training program reversed their osteoporosis. So,
and vitamin K2 make healthy bones, because there's no natural source of calcium in nature that's as significant as any foods we eat nowadays.
what the fuck? What?
The only food that has a significant amount of calcium in nature is dairy, and dairy isn't necessarily something that's relatively natural in the context of human diet.
Okay, again, complete and utter nonsense. So let's just go to chronometer again. So, believe it or not, our ancient ancestors would eat quite a lot of green vegetables. And let's just look at the calcium content. Collards. Collards, raw, 1 cup, let's say FDA serving size. So if we go down here, calcium, 197 milligrams 197 milligrams for 185-gram serving of collards. So that's, it says 20% of your calcium intake. It's not actually 20%. It's closer to half. It's like 40%. So just 1 serving of collards. There's your calcium. That's like about half of your calcium. I think bok choy is also, I can't remember. No, bok choy. Okay, I don't know how to spell bok choy. Whatever. You get the idea. Let's just see what broccoli has. Broccoli raw, 1 stalk. Again, you get a little bit more calcium from broccoli, but collards are one of the best sources of calcium. And actually, I think collards, the calcium in collards has a significantly better absorption rate than the calcium in milk as well. So,
Why do you?
And my result was 91, which is really good. I'm definitely producing enough creatine in my own body. Remember that, like cholesterol, you produce your own creatine, whatever you need. So yeah, my levels were perfect there. Okay, so next one is iron, or the market that we should be looking at, which is ferritin. So the reference range for ferritin is 25 to 200 micrograms per liter, and my result was 79. So yeah, looks really good to me. Iron is...
Okay, so he was like in the middle of the reference range, basically. You don't want iron levels that are too high, or else you'll increase levels of oxidation. That will result in free radical damage, and it can increase your risk of heart disease, diabetes, certain forms of cancer. So your body regulates iron absorption quite well, so I wouldn't really expect his iron levels to be particularly high when he's eating a whole foods plant-based diet. The only way to really spike your iron levels on a vegan diet is to take supplements or eat fortified foods, which bypasses your body's regulatory mechanism. So he's not anemic, he's not iron deficient. So, and look at the sour face Frank Tufano has. So far, he's been deficient in absolutely nothing, and his blood work has come back fantastic.
It's pretty much one of those things where you want to keep as low as possible, especially heme iron, because of complications, and more research is coming out with suggesting that iron or high levels of heme iron can be problematic. So you don't want to be deficient or under the reference, but you definitely don't want to be above it. The next one that a lot of people think is a very big problem on a plant-based diet is vitamin A, because vitamin A in the form of retinol can only be found in animal products, but you can find...
So fully formed vitamin A, it's only found in animal products. They do have vegan supplements that do have fully formed vitamin A. There are some people who might want to supplement if they're severely deficient. Supplementation is the best way to overcome a deficiency. And there are some weird, gene mutations that make it very difficult for some people to convert provitamin A carotenoids into fully formed vitamin A retinol. But that's very rare. Vegans have about the same risk of vitamin A deficiency compared to meat eaters. And if you look at things like sweet potato, Frank will say, oh, the conversion rate of provitamin A carotenoids into vitamin A is so low. Well, it doesn't matter. One sweet potato has like 5,000 frickin' times the amount of vitamin A you need in the form of provitamin A carotenoids. So even if the conversion rate is low, doesn't matter. And again, vitamin A is something that's very tightly regulated in your body. Your body will down-regulate conversion of provitamin A carotenoids into vitamin A if your vitamin A stores are high, and it will up-regulate it if your vitamin A stores are low. And there are benefits to consuming a lot of provitamin A carotenoids because they're very powerful antioxidants. They tend to build up around your skin and around your organs, so Again, it protects you from free radical damage, UV light exposure, so it's just a good thing to get vitamin A in that form.
Carotenoids in the plant kingdom, like beta carotene from sweet potato, is vitamin A. You can and more research is coming
Frank
out with
is just
suggesting that iron or high
now.
levels of heme iron can be problematic. So you don't want to be deficient or under the reference, but you definitely don't want to be above it. The next one that a lot of people think is a very big problem on a plant-based diet is vitamin A, because vitamin A in the form of retinol can only be found in animal products, but you can find carotenoids in the plant kingdom, like beta carotene from sweet potato and carrots and so on. So your body converts that beta carotene into retinol, but this conversion can vary from person to person, with several 100%. So everyone's conversion rate is different. So the reference range for vitamin A is...
I wouldn't really worry about conversion rates. If anyone starts talking to you about conversion rates of provitamin A carotenoids into vitamin A, just tell them to fuck off. It doesn't matter. Your conversion rates are going to vary depending on your vitamin A status. And provitamin A carotenoids are so abundant in certain fruits and in a lot of vegetables. Doesn't matter. Like, again, let's just go to Chronometer so I can show you again. So we'll put in sweet potato baked. We'll do one large sweet potato. Sweet potatoes tend to be pretty large. So if we go down here, vitamin A, 3,492 IUs, which is 1,153% of your daily recommended intake of vitamin A, in the form of provitamin A carotenoids. And again, like if you eat broccoli and shit, that'll be even higher. So because green vegetables do contain provitamin A carotenoids.
Is 1.2 to 3.2 micromoles per liter, and my score was 1.3. So it might be a good idea for me to increase my intake of sweet potatoes and carrots a little bit. It's really not an issue unless you're way below the...
Yeah, so he's within the reference range. I don't think there's anything to really worry about there. Again, your body regulates its vitamin A stores, so circulating levels, it's not the end-all be-all, but it's something like, okay, if you see that you're kind of on the low end of the spectrum, all right, maybe I should eat some more carrots, sweet potatoes. That, it's a decent idea, but again, he's been in the reference range for everything, so nothing of concern here.
The reference range, so it's completely fine, but why not consciously try to include more of these healthy...
This is comical. He's at the minimum of the reference range.
No, he's not. He's just slightly above the minimum of the reference range. What, again, what does this matter?
And all of these things, and he's saying he's perfectly fine.
Oh yeah, Frank. Just he's within the reference range. What is there? I just don't get it.
Beta carotene sources like sweet potato and carrots, as they provide so many benefits to my health, so I'm going to focus on that as well. B12 is the main thing that people can't get from a plant-based diet because of our sanitation process in the modern world. Whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter. The fact is that we're not getting enough B12.
Because of our sanitation process in the modern world. These vegans
literally doesn't friggin' matter. We can get B12 from fortified foods through supplementation. Frank is supplementing vitamin D3. He's actually made several videos. He's mentioned it on live streams where he's mentioned he's supplementing D3. Let's just go... Let's just take a look at this real quick. He mentioned it here. He's talking about his testosterone going up super high, and he's attributing it to D3 supplementation.
And although use now liquid vitamin D3, I put about 5,000 IU on them every day. And although I like to land on one of these things as the differentiating factor in raising my testosterone.
Yeah, see? So he admits he takes a D3 supplement, so what's wrong with a vegan taking a B12 supplement? Again, Frank is a complete, total hypocrite. He's a liar. He's a just weasel. So he's just making up bullcrap to try to, talk shit about John, when he also hearts every comment. I think he might do this because it has a favorable effect in the algorithm. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know why his his channel's kind of growing at a relatively steady pace. For the content he puts out, let's do Frank Tufano Social Blade. Let's see. So 1.3 million views in the past 30 days, which is pretty good, especially for the amount of subs he has. 8,310 subs, so his subs are growing pretty quickly. And he's averaging around, so I'd say around like 50,000 views per day, which is all pretty good. So I think the reason he's doing this, hearting every single comment, is because he's figured out that has some kind of favorable effect in the algorithm. Maybe I should actually start trying that.
I think because you're not eating dirt, is why you're not getting B12. It's the most
literally doesn't friggin' matter. Doesn't matter.
Wacko stuff. If you guys want to see my vegan carnivore goes vegan video, what I did was I put some dirt in my date smoothie. So there's plenty of dirt in his backyard. For some reason, he just doesn't want to put it in his date smoothie.
Yeah, guess what? The meat you eat is also loaded with bacteria, including E. coli, which comes from literal shit. I don't want to put that in my body, but you do.
People who are eating meat are not even getting enough B12. So it's not really enough to just test your serum B12 or cobalamin, because that doesn't give a full picture of whether or not you are running low in B12. If your serum cobalamin is running low, it's already very alarming. There are different stages of B12 deficiency, and you want to catch it on one of the first stages rather than the last, which is low cobalamin. So I went ahead and tested for homocysteine, which is an inflammation marker as well. And if the levels are higher than normal, it also suggests that you're running low on B12. So firstly, my serum cobalamin, it was 513 picomoles per liter, and then my
okay, so he's on the high range.
Homocysteine, the reference was just under 15 micromoles per liter, and my score was 7. So my homocysteine.
Okay, so again, within the reference range, and he's relatively low in the reference range.
Is not elevated, which means I'm not having any issues with B12 absorption or anything like that. And like I said in the beginning, I do supplement with B12. Not too much, but I do it a couple times a week. How much you have to take, I think it also depends from person to person, depending on absorption rates and like a lot of other things.
Yeah, I actually had a retired doctor living in my old apartment, and we were talking about this. He said way back, like he was a really old dude when he was, a practicing physician. He'd deal with a lot of vegetarians, and he'd have to give B12 injections to them. He said there was one woman he'd work with where she'd only need a B12 injection once per year to keep her B12 levels topped up, and there was some other people who needed it once every 3 months. I don't know what really affects B12 utilization in the body, if it's different between men and women. I think it actually might be different between men and women, especially when women are taking birth control. So there does seem to be an effect of... birth control does seem to have an effect on B vitamin metabolism, including B12 and I think B6. So that can affect it, but I don't know too much about that topic. It can vary from person to person. But generally I recommend supplementing, 250 micrograms? I think it's micrograms of cyanocobalamin per day.
Factors as well. So I just suggest doing regular blood work just to make sure that your B12 is in check by checking homocysteine or MMA. And this goes for anyone who is on any diet, whether you eat meat, dairy.
250 micrograms or milligrams? I can't remember. I think it's micrograms.
Eggs, or you're eating a fully plant-based diet. Let's go to vitamin D. So the reference range for vitamin D is 75 to 150 nanomoles per liter, and my score was 91, which is amazing considering I didn't supplement with vitamin D3.
Okay, so again, he's in the middle of the reference range, and look at Frank's face.
Before this blood test, I was getting plenty of sunshine by going out for hikes and walks, so it's definitely sufficient with sunshine if you're exposed to the sun, but if you're not, maybe you should consider supplementing with vitamin D3, because a lot of us stay inside too much and live in places where there is no sunshine. Okay guys, this is the one that I've been wanting to test for a very...
So for vitamin D3, in regards to comparing nanomoles to nanograms, so basically nanomoles are almost more than twice the reference range of nanograms. So, deficient.
I don't think he actually knows what he's talking about here. So John was within the reference range. I can't remember if... I think they were using nanomoles per liter in that blood test he took. So I don't know why Frank is talking about nanograms versus nanomoles. I don't know what he's talking about.
Vitamin D3 is 0 to 40 nanograms per milliliter or 0 to 100 nanograms per milliliter. And what was his vitamin D3? 70? No, his reference range he's in 91. So by the constituents of an indigenous diet, his vitamin D3 is actually a bit on the low side. Sufficient is 40 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. Ideal vitamin D3 levels are around 200 nanomoles per liter. So he wants to...
Oh, okay, so Frank, should he take a D3 supplement like you take? Okay, so let's go to Amazon. Vegan D3. There you go. Natural Factors Vegan D3. There's a few others. Vegan D3, Garden of Life. So you've got a lot of options. You don't have to take the supplement Frank is taking. But again, Frank is taking a D3 supplement to raise his D3 levels rather than eating a natural carnivore diet. So it's just amazing how full of shit Frank can be.
He definitely needs to more than double his D3 levels. Ideally, I think he could go up to 220, 230 nanomoles per liter, but this is, his D3 levels are... Why do you think D3 is the answer to everything? What the hell is wrong with you guys? It is the answer to everything.
Okay, I don't know why he'd have to elevate his D3 levels that high. I don't know of any research showing that it has, an effect in reducing all-cause mortality risk, but... again, John is within the reference range. He doesn't even supplement with D3 regularly, so I don't really see any concern here.
You cannot get jacked on a plant-based diet, so I must be using a lot of steroids. But remember, if you are on testosterone therapy or...
This is wacko shit, man. You can't get jacked on a plant-based diet. Really? Because I care more about being jacked than being deficient in every single vitamin and blood marker there is.
He's not deficient in anything. So what is he talking about?
These people are moronic.
Or if you're taking huge amounts of, exogenous testosterone.
Frank is trying to sell hypertrophy programs right now, and he's this skinny weakling. Let's see if he responded to me yet. Yeah, it still hasn't responded. He's this skinny little twerp, and he's selling hypertrophy programs, and he's saying, who cares about being jacked? Yeah, okay.
Your hormones or your levels will be way, way higher, not even at the highest reference, but way, way beyond that. And if you stop using testosterone, oftentimes you'll be way below because your body is not producing enough on its own. And, who has the time to worry about all that unless you're a professional bodybuilder? I'm not a professional bodybuilder, so I have no idea exactly how things work. I haven't really researched it too much.
Sean Baker is vitamin D deficient on his carnivore diet. Send me an email.
But
yeah, that's because he only eats skeletal muscle tissue. And, again, sunlight isn't a reliable source of D3. D3 deficiencies are extraordinarily common. That's not surprising. I'm sure most people following a carnivore diet, if they're not supplementing with D3, they're going to be on the low end of the reference range or deficient.
My serum testosterone levels, the reference was 6.7 to 31.9 nanomoles per liter, and my results were 17.8, so a little bit...
Okay, 17.8 nanomoles per liter. I don't know if this is free testosterone. Okay, testosterone nanomoles per liter to nanograms per deciliter. Converter. Where's a converter? Okay, okay, great. That's useless. Nanograms per deciliter to nanomoles per liter. Okay, so 17 17.8. Oh wait, whoops, that's a mistake. God damn it. What is this shit? Okay, let's click this link again. You can only put it, okay, 17.8. Calculate. So he's at 512 nanograms per deciliter, which is kind of average. He has like average testosterone.
7 to 31.9 nanomoles per.
These numbers can also be like really misleading too. You can get your testosterone, like a test for your testosterone. One day it can show up low, like literally the next day it can be twice as much. You want to kind of get a few tests within a month to actually get sort of an accurate picture. Some people, depending on their sleep schedule as well, that can also really impact a testosterone test. Generally, your testosterone is highest when you wake up. So if your sleep schedule is kind of weird or different, you got the test at a certain point in the day, or your hormones kind of like peak at a different time compared to the average person, this can really throw off the test. But you know, this showed he has average testosterone, so you know, whatever.
Liter, and my results were 17.8, so a little bit above the middle range there, so pretty much optimal. And you know, testosterone levels can vary greatly from day to day, you know, depending on how much sleep you're getting, true. And you know, loads of different factors as well. Stress level.
That's true. If you want to get an accurate picture on, you know, your testosterone concentrations in your serum, you should probably do 3 or 4 tests within a month to actually see what's going on.
Levels. So maybe I could have gotten a little bit of a higher score if I slept more than 4 hours on that day, or maybe not. Who knows? It doesn't really matter because it's still within the healthy range, normal range for males. And my estradiol or estrogen, the reference range was 37 to 147 picomoles per liter for males, and my result was 91. So this is really good as well because...
So again, he's within like the middle of the range. Low estrogen is actually bad for males too. So a lot of people don't really understand how estrogen works, and I think Frank is gonna talk some crap. Oh, 91 is actually kind of high. No, it's not. So estrogen is actually important for men. For one thing, you absolutely need estrogen to bind calcium to bone. If you have no estrogen in your body and you're a man, which is possible under certain circumstances, especially if you're taking estrogen blockers, that can make you have, you know, like basically zero estrogen in your serum. You will lose bone mineral density. So that's a bad thing. Estrogen is also really important for cellular repair. A lot of people think, oh, I need to get like really high testosterone, really low estrogen, so my muscles build up quickly. No, estrogen is actually also a very important hormone for tissue repair. And estrogen upregulates androgen receptors. So basically, you have androgen receptors, you know, your testosterone binds to the androgen receptors, it helps build muscle growth. Well, estrogen actually upregulates those receptors, so they're active for longer, making the testosterone in your system a lot more effective. You actually see steroid users run into this problem where they run estrogen blockers or aromatase inhibitors way too much. They're afraid of getting like gynecomastia. Well, what ends up happening is their estrogen becomes so low that they're actually negatively impacting their androgen receptors in their muscle tissue. They're not able to recover as well from exercise, even though they're taking gear. And it's because they're running way too much estrogen management. So, again, like having estrogen in that range, not a bad thing. I don't know what Frank is going to say here, though.
A lot of people think that consuming soy or soybeans or soy products, tofu, tempeh, and that kind of stuff that I eat a lot of because it's a great source of protein. A lot of people think that will raise your estrogen levels and turn you into a girl, basically, and give you man boobs. And there's a lot of studies that have come out since the 70s or whenever this myth started becoming popular, and all the studies that come out prove that it doesn't really affect your estrogen levels. I'm sure if you just eat soy all day and isolated soy, maybe you'll have an issue. But if you're just eating food and not just chugging down isolated soy all day and pounds and pounds of it, there is going to be...
All these guys.
There's actually no evidence that extraordinarily high intakes of soy would cause hormonal disruption, at least not in men. In women, it might actually affect things like your period, menstrual cycle, but in men, haven't seen any evidence that even really, really high intakes of soy would disrupt your hormones at all.
Guys claim they're not on steroids, but mysteriously they all seem to know about cycling on and off.
What? Okay, so I guess this person is on steroids too because he knows about cycling on and off. What? Okay, so if you know anything about steroids, you're automatically on steroids. So I guess Frank is on steroids? Must not be working out for you. Retarded. Like, you're a tiny, skinny little twerp. Literally every vegan fitness YouTuber is bigger than you. Like, is every vegan fitness YouTuber on steroids? No, they just lift and they eat properly. Unlike you, Frank, you just starve yourself and you have the strength of a weak little girl.
No effect at all. Just remember that phytoestrogens is completely different from animal estrogens, or the estrogens that animals and humans have in their body. And a lot of studies have actually shown that phytoestrogens can actually lower, estrogen, and that can be actually a very smart thing for people who are worried about.
That is actually possible. Now, I wouldn't say phytoestrogens would lower circulating estrogen in your body. It can just make it less effective. Again, it bonds to the same receptor sites, and because, you only have so many receptor sites, having a much weaker form of estrogen in your body competing for those receptor sites along with actual estrogen could have a benefit for you. So
about raising the estrogen levels to consume soy products as well, to avoid any issues if they're also consuming animal products, or maybe even for people who are on steroids who are doing bodybuilding. I think it could be a really good tactic to use. Soy definitely plays a role in my healthy diet, and it definitely does not impact my estrogen levels. I've been eating soy for 4 years, never an issue, still been making a lot of gains, and yeah, everything is within normal range. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to leave the screenshot of the rest of the markers in case you want to check it out. It's in Norwegian, and the units.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is kind of crazy that he's just saying that. Oh, this is in Norwegian. I can't read this shit. To me, it's just crazy in general that all of his blood markers are incredibly low. Like his
What? All of his blood markers are incredibly low. No, they're not. They're within the reference range.
His vitamin A is incredibly low. His vitamin D3 is below the.
No, it's not. It's like in the middle of the reference range.
The minimum
Do
in the
you go
United
to
States.
restaurants? And if you do, how do you avoid vegetables?
Okay, so I think we're done here. Frank is just he's just so incredibly dishonest. It just blows my mind. But I hope you guys enjoyed that, and as always, keep making those vegan gains. And I'm just going to head over to the gym now to make some more gains. Unlike Frank. Unlike Frank, who's going to be offering hypertrophy programs sometime soon, even though he doesn't know anything about hypertrophy. So that'll be pretty interesting to see. But thanks for watching, guys. Again, big thanks for supporting me through Patreon or through my website. Helps me out a ton. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week.